Councillor Pringle.
Present.
Councillor Mackey.
Present.
Councillor Bartlett.
Present.
Councillor Burley.
Present.
Councillor McQueen.
Present.
Halliday.
Present.
Councillor Patterson. Councillor Hicks.
Here.
Councillor Clumpus. Councillor Greenfield. Councillor Body.
Present.
Councillor Wright. Councillor Fosbrook.
Present.
Woodbury.
Here.
Councillor McKean. Councillor Ardell. Councillor Eccles.
Counted for.
Councillor Bell.
Present.
Thank
Thank you for that. If anybody on our council wants to declare a pecuniary interest, should be noted, I think in everybody's desk is a form that should be signed if you want to declare a pecuniary interest. And I would assume that if something arises during a council meeting that you want to declare, you can fill out that form and present it to the clerk. Okay, so thank you. We are going to now proceed into county council, and we're going to proceed there's three different minutes that we're going to be having a look at. The first one is county council and committee of the whole minutes dated March the 22nd, 2018. Put on the floor that the minutes of county council meeting and the committee of the whole meeting dated March the 22nd, 2018, and the resolutions contained therein be adopted as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Barfoot, seconder. Councillor Wright. Thank you very much. The minutes are up there for discussion. Any discussion? Councillor McQueen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden.
You use your mic, Mr. McQueen?
The portion around the tax policy, FRCW 118, 2018, I would like to have it pulled from those minutes, from the, I guess it was March 22nd minutes, to be deferred until April 26th. My point of that, I guess, do I need a seconder before I can continue on? Mr. Warden?
Pardon?
Do I need a seconder before I continue on?
I think you.
So I wish to have them pulled, and I can speak to it if I get a seconder.
Yes, we'll need a seconder. Councillor Fosbrook? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Warden, for having that, for recognizing me and having that moved and second. The reason I would like to pull this from the minutes, for a number of reasons. In that report, it talks about, from the report that was presented from Mr. Wepler with regards to the changes to the tax portion for agricultural lands from 0.25 to 0.22, was a very good report. I know that, as many hats I wear, I represent County of Grey on the Grey County Federation of Ag. I know they've had a number of discussions with regards to this at their level, along with just a public information forum just this last Monday night at the Ag office in Markdale. I know that the president or staff from that group tried to get on the March 22nd agenda, but when they inquired, they had to have a 10-day window to make that request, and they missed that window to speak to county council or in the committee of the whole at that particular day of March 22nd. Following from that, they are on our agenda today to speak in our committee of the whole. They investigated the possibility of speaking to council as a delegation, but I guess our procedure bylaw does not allow that. So in respect, Mr. Warden, with regards to the ability from the Grey County Federation of Agriculture to speak in front of this county council today, I think it's only rightful that we as county councilors hold off in making a decision until at least the 26th. I guess in that motion I was asking it to be on the 26th, but it would be respectful for us as county council to be able to listen to that group today, because if we pass these minutes as they are, it's moving that forward in a decision, and it's sort of like the horse is already gone how's that saying goes, the door's gone, or however that saying goes, I can't even think about it right now. But anyway, the horse is gone and the door's wide open, whatever. The part is it doesn't seem respectful in the sense to have them speak if a decision's already made. So that was my argument in the sense to have it put to the 26th of April. I understand we still have time with regards to bringing a bylaw on after that for our ratios and our tax policy with regards to the lower tier. So respectfully, Mr. Warden, I asked the County Council defer this part of to the 26th of April and to allow the discussion in our committee of the whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. Did I see Councillor Eccles with his hand up?
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. Councillor McQueen, you are the county representative on Grey County Federation of Ag?
I am.
You are also a director with the Grey County Federation of Ag?
I became a director last fall, yes. No different than, I guess, any other executive or any other forum that you can be on something and you become a director, yes?
I guess I'm struggling with that. You're also on the executive committee of the Federation of Ag. Am I correct with that?
Also on the executive of the AMO,
That's right.
representative from county.
That's a representative from council on a board, but OFA is here as a lobby group against. So I guess there's quite a bit of difference because this is not a committee or an endorsement of council as AMO is. You've got to be an elected official to be on that board. But you are on the board and then took the position as a county representative, non-voting. The county rep is a non-voting position on that. It is strictly as a liaison. It is strictly as a liaison between county council and the OFA, Grey County Federation of Agriculture.
I'm unaware of those terms of reference, Mr. Eccles.
Well, I guess then I question why you would even put your name forward as being the county rep when you're not aware of the restrictions or the requirements around the individual appointed by county council to that board.
So is it pointed out that I cannot be on the executive?
It's not pointed out in Grey County, it's pointed out in the Municipal Act that would be a conflict of interest for a county councillor to be being a representative of county council on an outside board that we've been invited to. And I think if you check with the Integrity Commissioner and a few other ones, I would strongly suggest, Mr. McQueen, that you declare a conflict of interest right now on your representation or resign. My advice to you, but I can tell you there's a conflict of interest in the Integrity Commissioner, and that is where you're at right at this present moment.
Thank you for that, Councillor Eccles. CA, did you have some comments on that?
Only just for the benefit of everyone in the room, further to Councillor McQueen's comments. We, as staff, did want to be as respectful as we could of the new information that the Grey County Federation is bringing forward this morning. Under our normal procedure, the bylaw to pass the tax policies would have been included on today's agenda to be voted on. That's not what happened. We did hold back on putting those bylaws forward in an effort to ensure that there could be a complete and fulsome conversation today. And so I just wanted to be clear that we have tried to ensure that there was room for everyone to have all information before they made a decision.
Thank you for that. Councillor McQueen, do you have any comments?
Nothing further.
So your motion will stand then? Okay, thank you. That being said,
Voting on just that motion.
We're just voting on that motion,
To defer.
a motion to defer. All in favor of that motion? All right, all opposed?
Have a record a vote, Mr. Warden, please.
Okay.
Clerk will call.
Counselor Pringle?
No.
Counselor Mackey?
Yes.
Counselor Barfoot?
No.
Counselor Burley?
No.
Counselor McQueen?
Yes.
Warden Halliday?
Yes?
Counselor Patterson?
No.
Counselor Hicks?
Nay.
Counselor Clumpus?
No.
Counselor Greenfield? No. Sorry. Counselor Body?
No.
Counselor Wright?
No.
Counselor Fosbrook?
Yes.
Counselor Woodbury?
No.
Counselor McKean?
No.
Counselor Ardell?
Nay.
Counselor Eccles?
No?
Counselor Bell?
No.
Motion is lost, 17-7.
Thank you. So we'll go back to the motion that was put on the floor by Councillor Barfoot and Councillor Wright, that the minutes of County Council meeting and Committee of the Whole meeting dated March the 22nd, 2018, and the resolutions contained therein be adopted as presented. All in favor of that motion? Yes?
If I may, Mr. Warden, just briefly, if we could clarify, there's been some discussion in the past about when we receive presentations on screen at a meeting that were not in the agenda package for everybody to see. I apologize, I didn't revisit just the last meeting, but it occurs to me that there have been a few meetings where we have not necessarily received those presentations after the fact. So I'm just looking for clarification. Have we established a process where any presentations that we view only are in fact going to be emailed as well as posted to the agendas?
Our practice is that we post them to the county website after the meeting so that they're accessible for everyone.
Thank you for that. There was a period when we were actually receiving them by email, so we know that they had been published. And so we shouldn't expect to receive an email, just visit the website at some point, because we might not know when they're posted.
No, we are trying to post them immediately following, so within 24 hours of the meeting, we're trying to have them posted to the county website. So the emails will no longer go out, and you'll be able to access them directly from the website.
Thank you for that. And if I may, so when we get to Committee of the Whole, I understand that there's going to be information in relation to affordable housing and the financial statements of that provider. I did not see that information in the agenda. I didn't miss it. It's not there.
It will be up on the screen today.
Thank you. I would, for the record, appreciate the opportunity to review this information in advance of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Call the vote. You have a comment?
Yeah, well, with regards to the minutes, there are minutes there from the Committee of Management, and there are closed.
We're not there, Mr. McQueen.
Oh, sorry, you're at the, which one are you at?
Still at the,
Council.
Oh, A, okay, sorry. Apologize.
so I'm calling the vote on the approval of the minutes. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you, that motion has been carried. All right, thank you for that. The next one is a motion regarding recolored gray public meeting minutes dated March the 16th and 27th. And that the motion reads that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting dated March the 16th, 2018, being a recolor gray workshop, and the County Council meeting dated March the 27th, 2018, be a statutory official plan review public meeting under the Planning Act, be adopted as presented. Motion on the floor, Councillor Greenfield, seconder, Councillor Bell. Any discussion on that? Yes, Councillor Fosbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Once again, I'll try to be brief. One of the concerns that I have, and I've expressed, and I'm going to reiterate, is that the Committee of the Whole meeting that took place on the 16th of March was originally presented to us to be a workshop. And I have concerns that not having posted that as a Committee of the Whole, and ultimately that the public was welcome to attend, is somewhat misleading. I also want to point out that I do believe that it is quite important that as we go forward, that as county council members, we have the benefit of all of the written comments that were received. And I wonder if we can get any comment about whether or not that's a realistic expectation. So if residents take the time to put their comments in writing, I appreciate that staff is summarizing, but I would far prefer, and I believe it's appropriate for us to see source documents, including the source documents from commenting agencies and the province. And last but not least, given the importance of this, I would suggest, and for consideration, that perhaps this be an agenda item for every single meeting going forward until we actually approve this, so that we're allowed the opportunity to comment on it, and not necessarily when it comes back with the next revisions. And the revisions, I understand, are not going to be minor, so I think that it's important that we all recognize that we have had a great number of public consultations. We've had one public statutory meeting, and that meeting was to review a draft that will still change significantly. So in general, I want to make sure that we're satisfying the measures for public participation and council making fully informed decisions. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Fosbrook. I'll take a query from Councillor McKean.
It's just a comment that on page 16 to 61, the live gray, and the first one is need higher density housing styles in rural areas to offer affordable housing solutions, 4 to 6 unit shared services. That's kind of the mini hotel suite, I believe, that Randy phrased it the last meeting. We haven't had a chance at our municipality yet to have our planners give us a report as to what that would look like. Just letting county council know that you will be getting a resolution from the town of Blue Mountains once we've received that report, either in support of or against that.
Thank you, Councillor McKean. I think our clerk has a comment on, with regard to notifying the public.
So it was posted on our county website as a Committee of the Whole meeting, open to the public, because we knew we would have quorum here, so we needed to convene as a Committee of the Whole, informal and inviting our stakeholders, member municipalities, et cetera. So it was posted to the county website.
Thank you. Any further comments? Yes, Councillor Barfa.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. I guess just looking for clarification. We've had the discussion many times of so far all we've received is all the input, and there will be another document then coming forward. But I guess I'm not clear, Randy, on the document. Is council going to be involved then in the discussion about and I go back to the phrase of the items that are going to make the cut and the items that are not going to make the cut? Is council going to be involved in that process part, or will we just see the next revised document and then express our comments at that time?
Yes, Randy, please answer that.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Warden. So the plan is to make some recommendations in terms of what revisions that staff will be recommending based on the comments we've heard. So we'll be presenting that revised document to council. We're hoping the last committee of the whole meeting in May. So I think it's May 24th. At that time, of course, we're hoping for a fulsome discussion in terms of, do those recommended revisions make sense? If not, maybe going in a different direction. If committee of the whole accepts those revisions, we'll then circulate for further review and comment. We'll do a 30-day review comment period, post on our website, ask for any further comments on that document, and then we'll be bringing back hopefully a final then version of the official plan in July is the time frames we're working at right now. Just further to the comments in terms of summary of all written comments. So based on the amount of comments that we received, to summarize those, we think is a daunting task. So what we're now planning to do is basically have all those comments in one PDF document. We'll post that on the website so that everybody can see all the written comments as opposed to just a summary of those comments. So that's the plan at this stage. So once that's complete, we'll be posting on the website. We'll be sharing with council all those comments that we have received over the, since we've released the draft official plan, which was back in November.
Thank you, Randy. Will that come out before you come back to council with, in the committee of the whole?
Yeah, we hope to have that done before the end of this month.
Okay.
And then we'll hopefully be able to post it or include it as either a link or something. I have discussed this with.
Right,
Lydia,
okay.
But we'll add a future agenda for committee of the whole. That way everyone can see it, part of that package, as well as it'll be on our website for everyone to see as well.
Good. Well, there was a good capture of the comments that came from council meeting there, so I appreciate that. Councilor Wright.
Thank you very much. I would just like to say that the City of Owen Sound sent in, we were trying to figure out, it was 8 or 9 pages of comments.
Right.
And we'd be glad to supply anybody that wants to have those 8 or 9 pages of comments. But our staff said that, told the mayor and myself that they worked very well with the county and they were really pleased with the reception and the time that the county spent with them understanding the concerns of the city.
Well, thank you, Councillor, and I'm sure Randy will include some of that or a summary of it.
Yeah, those comments will definitely be included.
Right, thank you. Thank you for that comment. Councillor Hicks, and then Councillor Fosbrook, and then,
Mr. Warren, I'm not sure that I understood the answer to Councillor Barfoot's question. I get the answer to Anne Marie's question, but will the document or a revised document be coming back to council, or will council be involved in the creation of that revised document?
So, part of the reason for the March 16th workshop was to get some further feedback from council as well as local municipal councils in terms of what other further revisions we should be considering as part of the draft official plan. So that's as part of the summary on the agenda today is the comments that were received from that workshop. We've also then summarized the comments we received at the public meeting. So what we were planning to do, and I'm open to direction from council, is we're going to be taking the comments that we have received from council to date, from local municipal councils, from conservation authorities, from developers, from members of the public, and making recommended revisions to the document. That document will then be presented to committee of the whole, we're hoping on May 24th. At that time, there will be some hopefully further discussion on whether or not those revisions that we're recommending make sense, or if we need to have further revisions, or if council at that time doesn't agree with those revisions we're recommending. So that's the opportunity and the time, I would say, to comment on any of those revisions. And at that time too, we'll have a summary, not a summary, all the written comments will be put into a single document. So we'll be sharing that as soon as that's completed with council.
is that okay, Councillor Hicks, to answer your question? That sounds good to me. Thank you, Randy. Councillor Fosbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So I just want to point out again that looking at the draft official plan, point 9 begins with our tools, and that is described to be from pages 151 through the end of the document, page 210. This is a whole portion that has not received any focus. I can appreciate that we've got 5 themes, and we've talked about those at length, and certainly they're worthwhile discussing. But there's a whole segment of this that we've not discussed at all. And I really think it's important that we, as a group, go through this and understand not just what's on paper, but that the interpretation of it and the implications of it. So thank you for the opportunity to make that comment. And I would
Thank you.
just ask for the clerk's clarification. I did verify the website. I can't tell when things are posted. Do you know when that appeared as a committee of the whole meeting?
I'd have to look into that.
Clerk will notify you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Randy, any comments on that area that hasn't been
Yeah.
mined yet for information?
Yeah, section 9. So section 9 is essentially it's kind of the implementation section. It identifies how we're going to implement some of the proposed policies in the official plan through various tools
Right.
and mechanisms that are available under the Planning Act. It also includes things like definitions and everything else. So we will be making revisions to that section based on comments we have received. And then at that time, we can have a further discussion about what that section entails and what's included in that section.
Thank you, Randy. So the total thing will be reviewed, and nothing will be left unexplored. Any other comments? No? Okay, that being said, all in favor of the motion? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is number C, and it's the Committee of Management and for the long-term care, that the Committee of Management minutes dated March the 22nd, 2018 be adopted as presented to County Council, and that the Committee of Management meeting minutes dated March the 22nd, 2018 be adopted as provided to County Council. Put it on the floor, Councillor Ardell.
Before I do that, I have a question.
It has to be on the floor, then you can ask a question. Motion put on the floor, Councillor Burley, seconder, Councillor Wright. Okay, so it's all on the floor, now you can ask questions.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Question. We do have some alternate members who have been sworn in some municipalities now. Are they privy to the closed session meetings?
Let the clerk answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. In accordance with our alternate member policy, alternate members receive a paper copy of those minutes at the time of the meeting they come to next. So I'll use Councillor Woodbury as an example. He was at the last meeting. He has closed meeting minutes on his desk, and we will retrieve those at the end of the meeting.
All right. And I also, and the mayor, do get closed session meetings because of our computer systems with the town of the Blue Mountains. I do have some questions regarding this report. So I would like to address some of the information in this. I'm just wondering, I guess I would need 2/3. So I would like to have a vote on that to go over some of this confidential information.
Yes, clerk will poll the council.
Yep.
So in order to speak to closed meeting minutes, we do not have closed meeting on the council agenda. Therefore, we'd need to make an addition to the agenda, and that requires a 2/3 vote.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, Councillor Mackey?
Thanks, Mr. Warden. I agree with Councillor Ardell. There's some critical information that appeared in some of the documents that
Point
were
of order,
provided.
we've got a motion on the floor here, but it's only moved. We don't have a seconder for it.
Thought we had a seconder, yes, there was a seconder.
Not for Councillor Ardell's motion that the agenda amendment to go into closed session to get into the discussion.
You're absolutely right.
So procedurally, we need to move this
You're right.
and
Not a problem.
pass it before we can start talking about what's in that,
Okay.
in those minutes.
Thank you. Seconder to Councillor Ardell's is Councillor Mackey. Okay, so now,
Mr. Warden, if I could,
yes.
I certainly wasn't going to get into the information. I was just wanting to point out to council that there is some critical information that should be discussed in closed session.
Okay. Councillor, CAO.
No,
Sorry.
I haven't reached that level yet. If I may, just to make council aware as well that at this point in the agenda, we're discussing minutes rather than having a conversation about the content of those minutes. Like, it's certainly, if you decide that you wish to pull the minutes, you will be able to talk about the information. I think to ask questions of clarification. There can be no debate or discussion about the information in closed session with this information. If you wish to have a discussion that then goes on to further the work of council, we will need to put this information on a future agenda.
Thank you for that update. Councillor McQueen.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So on,
We're discussing the,
yeah, I'm talking about process. I'm not talking about the contents.
thank you.
Me as a county councillor, no different than the other 17 around the table, wish to talk to the in-camera minutes. What's my process? Do I have to add it to the next agenda? Because I think fundamentally, as a county councillor, I have the ability to speak to those in-camera minutes, no different than anybody around the table. So not knowing it to be on the agenda till the agenda comes out, but I need 10 days to put something on the agenda. So do I have to make a notice of motion today that I wish to speak to these in camera at the next council meeting? Is that how the process works?
If I may, through you, Mr. Warden, I don't believe that this would be an in-camera discussion. And if you would like to go into closed session to talk about why it's not in closed session anymore, I can certainly provide that clarification. There was a particular rationale for why the Committee of Management discussed this information in closed. Once it comes
I'm not
back
talking about the particulars, I'm just talking about process. So today we have a set of minutes that has in-camera minutes on there.
Yes.
And whether it's today's minutes or any other day's minutes, if me as a county councillor, no different than the 17 other people around the table, wish to speak to that, and I understand that if you go in camera, you can only, like you said, talk to procedural or clarity, but you can't talk about the details. If I, as a county councillor, want to talk to the details, because the management committee is made up of 5, we as the county council are of 18 who deal with the issue. My rights as a councillor, how do I, if I want to speak to those items, what's my process? Do I have to then now ask this to be on the next agenda to speak to the contents of those in-camera minutes?
It's my belief that that would be the most appropriate and correct way, and I'll look to the clerk to put it, because it needs to be an open session discussion, to add it today to today's agenda, you would need that 2/3 majority to amend today's agenda.
For today.
I'm not sure that, given our, commitment to appropriate notice and everything, if, just in the spirit of things, if that's what you'd like to do, or if we need to put it on the next agenda, and that way the information's there and people can be prepared to have that discussion.
I understand that the process of why you have it to the agenda, and I know this from other situations, if we are approving minutes, we approve the minutes, but if you want to talk the detail, you have to add it to an agenda, or it has to be on the agenda. So I'm just following up, is if I want to speak to the contents of this, I have to have it on the next meeting's agenda, and I make that request as a county councillor, or is that through a notice of motion, or how does that process? Not saying it may or may not pass today with 2/3 majority, but I'm just asking about process.
So it is on, there is a resolution moved and seconded to add that to the agenda so that you can talk about the content of the minutes and look for some clarification, and that is what's happening right now. But it does, because it's not on the agenda, it does require a 2/3. If it's the wish of council to add the closed meeting minutes to the next meeting for discussion, I don't see any reason why we couldn't put it on the agenda.
I don't believe it's not the closed meeting minutes,
No.
though. I think at
And
this
that's the-
point, what you're asking for is to have a discussion about the information that was provided to Committee of Management. You're not actually wishing to discuss the minutes. You want to discuss the content of that conversation.
For clarity, for us to speak to the items in camera, we have to go in camera.
Correct.
Okay, but you're telling me that takes 2/3 majority to do that today? Or does it take 2/3 majority to move the business of those in-camera minutes onto today's agenda? I think there's two different clarities, because if we just go into camera to talk about, to get clarity, I don't see why that needs 2/3 majority. To move the business of what's in camera, then I would say you need to make 2/3 majority, because wasn't on the agenda to move that business. But as far as clarity to go in camera, I don't know why that needs 2/3 majority, because I thought as anybody around this table or any council forum, if you want to talk to or understand or speak to the points of in camera, you just move and second the motion, you go in camera. I don't understand why it takes 2/3. So then that's why I'm asking about the process of myself as a county councillor and anybody else around the table. how do I speak? And that's why I'm trying to seek clarity. A simple motion, I think, today, to go in camera, but if you're going to move that business, then you need 2/3 majority to move that business forward, or it needs to be added on a future agenda. That's the way I sort of see it, but I'm asking for that verification.
So right now, there is no closed meeting session on the agenda. Therefore, we'd have to make an amendment to the agenda to add a closed meeting component to it. And making any type of change to the agenda requires a 2/3 vote.
Following up with that, who makes the decision whether we go in camera or not? If there's information there, why would it not be naturally that, is that the chair of those committees that feels it's important? Is it the warden? I guess, who makes the decision? Or maybe there should be the provision that any in-camera minutes should be at least on the agenda if one of us have a question. I don't understand why, as a county councillor, why I don't have the ability to make a comment on something that's in camera that we got sent, plus documents, why I can't speak to it today, because it's on our agenda. I don't understand that. It just seems like we're trying to have open and transparency. I guess I could get into the discussion of why certain items maybe need to be in camera, but I'm not going to go there right at this moment. My point is how do I speak to something that is on the agenda, but I can't speak to something that's on the agenda?
If I may, the purpose of the minutes and the process that we're undertaking at this time is to approve the minutes. Do the minutes accurately reflect what happened at the Committee of Management meeting when they went into closed session? So that information has been provided. If there's a concern that there is an inaccuracy in those minutes, then that needs to be corrected. But other than that, the purpose of the minutes is simply to provide the information to you about what happened. If you want to have a conversation about the actual nature of that discussion, about the content of the conversation at Committee of Management, if you want to deliberate the decision that was taken, that's not the minutes, that's a different matter, and we need to set that up so that it is a discussion that involves all of council and in open session.
So following up from that, I would not know to put it on the agenda until I received the package. I read the package, we got sent 2 documents. I can't put it on the agenda. So we were saying it needs 2/3 majority today to put it on the agenda. So I, as a councillor, need then, if I want to talk to those items, I got to place it on the next council agenda. But if it's an issue of timing, who determines that? Or I'm just saying hypothetically, if there's something, information that's in there, who makes the decision whether it's on county council's plate if it is important enough to be on county council? Because as far as the errors or omissions of the minutes, I have no idea because I was not at that meeting. So to prove something, I'm approving something that's just sort of there, but there is information in there, and I have questions.
And my recommendation would be then that you want to have this conversation with all of council so that there can be some discussion. It would be appropriate for you to make a notice of motion to ask to have this put on the next agenda so that there can be a conversation about it.
Thank you for that input. Councillor Wright, you have some comments?
Thank you very much, Warden. I'd like to know when all this changed, because I'm having trouble understanding what is being told here. Unless it's been changed, and I'm not aware of it, whenever we've had minutes come to us and we've had in-camera minutes, we have always been able to go in camera and discuss those minutes. As long as I've been on council, we've done that, and I'd like to know when that process changed.
The clerk will comment on that.
So, in the past, and not in the I guess, the near past, we have had automatically a closed session requirement on the, or a closed session provision on the agenda. That has not happened in the last year and a half anyway. And the closed meeting minutes are provided to council as part of their package. Again, I can only speak to the procedures that if I'm making an amendment to the agenda, we do need to have that 2/3. Because we are adding an item to the agenda to go into closed session, which was not on the agenda to begin with.
I think Councillor Wright is saying historically from her point of view and being a former warden that when closed minutes
I think.
were there was always an opportunity to discuss closed
Exactly,
minute meetings because
exactly.
you
I have
approved
never
them.
sat on any council at City Hall or Board of Health or anywhere when we've had closed meetings that we haven't been able to go into a closed session and have a discussion on those minutes. So there's something here that I'm not understanding, and I think it needs to be cleared up. Because I really do think that whether you agree with what is being said or not, I do think that all councillors have a right to have a discussion on the closed minutes since they weren't at the meeting.
Thank you for that input. And Councillor McKee,
Thanks, Warden Halliday. I'm listening to the conversation, and to get past this, can we not just table this and schedule a meeting for, and have it be on the next agenda? Because there seems to be quite a bit of interest in this. Is that not the cleaner way to deal with this and not approve the minutes as they're put out and have it put on to the next agenda to be dealt with? Is that not a cleaner way? I'll have to ask the staff, is that not a cleaner way of dealing with this issue?
well, I still haven't addressed Councillor Wright's process here where it was an automatic given that.
Well, if my friend, Councillor over here, John, if he would put that motion on the floor to table, I would second.
We already have a motion on the floor.
I don't, I'm not sure if
Councillor Ardell, no.
Yeah.
Ardell and Mackey, do you want to?
Withdraw?
So I do have a question. So did we change our procedural bylaw?
Yes.
Was that in the procedural bylaw to change it? Because we've always talked about this. I was on county council in 203 to 206. We always could pull closed session and talk about it, and we do at our council. So I guess I'm like Arlene, I'm sorry. It's just like, wow, I didn't realize we couldn't talk about this. But I will withdraw, and if Mr. Mackey will withdraw, and then we can go with this one to defer it, then we can all talk about it then, because I do have some concerns and questions, because I just got it this morning too, so I would rather withdraw my motion so that we could talk about it in closed session at another time.
Point of clarity, I thought once a motion's on the floor, it stays on the floor.
The mover and seconder can withdraw that motion.
It changes from procedure bylaw to procedure bylaw.
Well, that's acceptable that the councillors can withdraw that motion. So then there's, that motion then is duly noted that the mover and seconder has to have it removed. So Councillor McKean is making a motion to.
I'd move that this be deferred till the next meeting and for full discussion, whether it be an open or closed session, depending on the information that may be discussed.
Will the discussion be in a closed session?
I'll leave that up to staff. I think that's all.
Have to be.
Yes. Oh, thank you, Councillor. Former wardens are helping me out here today. Thank you, Councillor Ardell. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wright, you had a comment.
She'll second.
You're seconding it. Okay, so the motion is on the floor, and we've got that moved by, and Councillor McKean, seconded by Councillor Wright. And the motion is now on the floor and is open for discussion. Councillor Hicks?
I'm listening carefully. If I understand the advice of the clerk, if something isn't on the agenda, it requires a two-thirds vote, and I think that's rightful advice. And so we could have the discussion today if we had a two-thirds vote. But arguably, what I hear Councillor Wright saying is that it is on the agenda, because the minutes, including the closed minutes, appear on today's agenda. So I don't think that we would technically require a two-thirds vote, if I understand your advice properly, Madam Clerk. It's that if it is not on the agenda, you require a two-thirds vote. If it is on the agenda, you can discuss it. And I think that's the point that several councillors are trying to make. Why can't we discuss something that appears to be on the agenda, including these closed minutes.
The CAO and clerk are now going to answer your.
If I can, I think what you heard the clerk say was that about 18 months ago, when we were making changes, one of the things that was taken off the council agenda template was a standing closed meeting. Whether we needed it or not, it was there. And that was removed, and that's what's got us into an issue this morning, is the absence of that standing closed minute. So we've gone through a year and a half of meetings, and it hasn't been an issue until now. And today, it's an issue. It would have been very helpful to have had that already on the agenda so that we could use it if we needed to. I'm taking away from your conversation this morning that certainly we didn't talk enough about that at the time the change was made, and that we need to probably reinstate that on our template so we don't get into this place again. In no way did staff want to prevent people from having a conversation or being able to discuss minutes. So this is a problem that we need to fix.
So do we need to bring a revision to the procedural bylaw at the next committee meeting? Or at the next council meeting?
We'll look into it. It won't be at the next.
Well, I have support of, from my personal point of view, that Councillor Wright is right. Councillor McKean, and then Councillor Burley.
Well, undoubtedly, it has changed, the procedural bylaws changed. I don't consider it a big problem if we hadn't run into this for a year and a half. As long as we have this ability to defer it to another meeting to get it changed. And I know that some of us, including, the alternate members, only received this information this morning. So not a bad thing to be able to take it, I know you can't take it with you, but the general thought, and think about it till the next meeting, and, maybe ask questions of staff, or, just give it some general thought as to what questions you may have at the next meetings. I don't see it as a huge deal, as long as we're not forced to take something and approve it that we haven't been able to discuss. That's the biggest thing.
Thank you. What you're only approving, though, in the minutes is the minutes for errors and omissions, not the content, other than unless it's wrong. So, Councillor Burley was next, and then Councillor Ardell is. Who? Councillor Burley had his hand up. Did Councillor Barfoot have his hand up as well? So what are you pointing to, Councillor Ardell?
Do I have the floor or not?
You do.
Well, Mr. Mackey did have his hand up.
But Councillor, you're being recognized that you have
Okay.
the floor.
As chair of the Committee of Management, it's extremely important that all county council has a discussion on this matter. That's extremely important. I don't know how we do it. If we put it on the next agenda to have the discussion, do we discuss in camera, since it was in camera for the Committee of Management? And then if we want to advance that business, we have to come out in open session. Is that the understanding I'm to believe? And it's just like a ball rolling down the hill. Things change from day to day. And it's extremely important that the Committee of Management gets information, reports back to County Council, but on top of that, it's more important that County Council as a whole has a chance to discuss everything that goes on at the Committee of Management. So I strongly support this motion that we do have that discussion at our next meeting. And it's a shame we have to wait that long.
Thank you, Councillor Burley. Any other comments? Councillor Mackey, of course, hidden behind this.
Thanks, Mr.
screen
Ward.
here for a minute. Thanks.
I guess I'm struggling with why it can't be brought forth today, just to even get a little bit more information. That's what, the minutes are there. We got to review the material. There's some questions that probably some members of council have right now. And I think we should have that opportunity to go into closed session to at least be updated by the Long-Term Care Committee on what work's been taking place. Putting it off for another 2 weeks, to have that discussion. I don't know why some of that can't take place today.
Thank you for that, and perhaps after today's session, I, as the warden, have a power to call a special meeting of council, which will be something that we should consider, and so that I'm considering. Councillor McQueen, sorry, and then Councillor Ardell.
I could say it's my name in the back, maybe, I don't know, but just point of clarity. something is on the agenda. Something that's on the agenda is the Committee of Management closed meeting minutes dated March 22nd, 2018, be adopted as provided to County Council. It's on the agenda. Going back to Councilor Wright's point, it's on the agenda. What in the procedure bylaw presents us to going into that? Because it says close meeting minutes. It's on the agenda. I can understand the part of moving business forward has to be on the agenda or 2/3 majority. But the minutes, it's an item. So how could we as county council support those minutes as received if we couldn't talk about them? This seems like something that's 50 years past. Like, it's on the agenda. It's on the agenda and it says close meeting minutes. Would the integral commissioner stand up and say, you can't go on camera because of why? Because it says closed meeting minutes. I'm sure the municipal act speaks to in-camera or closed meeting minutes that you need to go in camera. That's why they say closed meeting minutes. I'm sort of debating that point. It's on the agenda, similar to the comment that Councilor Wright is saying. This has been, does it?
Thank you, Councilor.
I find in the procedure bylaw where it says we can't go there. I guess we always look at rules saying we can, but where does it say we can't?
Well, our clerk has made that decision today, and I understand where you're coming from, but we also have a few other comments on the floor that I have to address, one being Councilor Ardell, and then follow that by Councilor Body.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So on due process, if the alternate members are only receiving it like we do this morning, and in 2 weeks when it comes up again and Mr. McQueen's away and their alternative member comes, he won't be able to read the minutes until that morning and that not be privy and won't be privy to the discussion. So I think that's a flaw. So if, Mr. McQueen, I hope you're not away, but if he is, then your alternate member won't be able to ask any pertinent questions because he won't know about it.
So the clerk will comment on that, and I understand your question, so.
Okay, thank you.
So if an alternate member comes to next week's meeting, or the next meeting, they will have those minutes in front of them and be able to participate in the discussion related to those minutes. Should that matter go forward.
I will add that when we discussed the alternate member process and procedures, we did encourage everyone, where at all possible, to make it known that there was the intent for an alternate to be here, and that staff made the commitment that they would sit down and go through materials with an alternate ahead of time, just to help them to get up to speed so they could participate in a meaningful way in the conversation.
So there is a process then. Yes. Councilor Body, then Councilor Bell. Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I agree with my friend, Mr. McQueen there. I think we should have been able to speak to it. However, at this point, we've got a motion on the floor. It delays it for 2 weeks, but we're protected that we can follow up and maybe look at what we're doing, check, clarify the bylaws and everything to avoid this. But I think we've come to an impasse on this issue. There's a motion to adjourn it or to kick it down the road for 2 weeks. Nothing's going to be decided until then. You know, we are adopting the minutes, which means that we're bringing them into the city or into the municipality's business. So it isn't so much of just approving the minutes as we're adopting them. So I think it's important that we do have the discussion. We've got the outlet right now with Mr. Keen's motion, and I'm supporting that. I think we've kicked the daylights out of it, and we're not going to move ahead at this point on the...
Well, it's been a good discussion, lessons learned. Councilor Bell, do you have a quick...
Quick one, Mr. Warden. Thanks, Mr. Body. I agree wholeheartedly with your assessment. To the management here, those items that are going to go in closed session for a member who may or may not be here, and Tara, I'll look at you for this, I guess, would they be able to pick up those in hard copy the day that our agendas come out? Because obviously we don't want to put it over the airwaves if it's not a secure system on our computers, but would they be able to pick those up in paper form?
Good question. Tara?
Or as my good friend Mr. Eccles just announced, would those items be allowed to leave the building in a hard copy?
I would say that they're not allowed to leave the building in hard copy, but certainly we could encourage members to come in earlier in the week after the items are posted to the website and review those at their leisure.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you, that clarifies that. So, okay, so good lessons learned and process. Councillor Fosbrook, I have to recognize you, but I want to move on, so.
Well, I do appreciate that, but I haven't addressed this issue yet. I'll try to be as brief as possible. There's been a number of points covered that I won't repeat. So I think it's important to note that we seem unclear about the requirement for this material to be enclosed. And to Councillor Burley's comment about this is going to be discussed in camera, I've looked at the material, and I'm not convinced that this must be in camera. So again, the legislation says we may, it doesn't say we shall. I'll look forward to staff's assessment and rationale to support us going into closed. I also want to point out that having observed the agendas and the minutes from the Committee of Management, it seems odd that should we approve these minutes today, that in fact the Committee of Management won't see those minutes on their next agenda for them to actually discuss business arising from the minutes, if you will. So if we don't discuss this today as County Council, and the Committee of Management doesn't have it on their agenda to discuss it either, this is done. I'm just
Thank
going to
you.
carry on with a couple of other points.
It's a point of order. We're discussing the motion to defer.
Okay, so I think Councillor Wright brings, we're talking about a deferral, so I think what you're bringing forward is good information, but I want to move forward.
Okay, if I could just make one last point, because the next time we talk about this, I'd like to avoid having to discuss process then and be clear about what we're looking forward to at the next meeting. So the CAO mentioned that there could be discussion but no debate. I would look forward to the interpretation of what that means as we go into this
Okay.
next discussion.
With regard to the approval of the minutes today, that's what I was speaking. Certainly, I'm not in any way suggesting that should this information come forward for discussion here, that certainly I anticipate there would be
Debate.
fulsome debate.
Absolutely. Okay, so that being said, and thank you, everybody, for providing input. Councillor McKean has brought forward a motion, and seconded by Councillor Wright, that the Committee of Management minutes, open and closed, be deferred until April 26th meeting. All in favor of that? Opposed, if any? So that's approved. Okay, thank you for that. Lessons learned. And we move on to the next is a report from the Board of Health dated March 2018. And I want to put that motion on the floor that the Board of Health report dated March 2018 and the Board of Health minutes dated February the 23rd, 2018 be received for information. So report dated March, is there a date on March on the, rather than just March? I know it's a March meeting.
It's just a March. It's just a report.
Oh, okay. Yes, Dr. Ayer.
No, we need-
Good morning, Mr.
Oh,
Warden.
so, mover and seconder, please.
Certainly.
Yes, Councillor Patterson, seconded by Councillor Barfoot. Thank you.
Good
Welcome.
morning. So, before I provide the updates from the meeting, there is some good news to share with the council. It came just in the past 10 days from the ministry. The ministry ran an audit about the finance and HR and IT functions in the health unit. And the verbal confirmation was the performance is above or better than average health units, the average health units that have been audited recently. So I thought I would share this to start with.
Thank you.
From the March 23rd meeting, board meeting, as directed by the ministry, the board rescinded the motion to appoint Dr. Hazel Lynn as the MOH.
Doctor, could you speak into your mic, please? You could actually sit down if we'll beg you for, allow you to do that, but I'd like you to speak in. We are, as all our meetings are being recorded by a video, so the voice pickup is important. Thank you.
Certainly. So regarding AMOH versus acting AMOH, as directed by the ministry, the board rescinded the motion to appoint Dr. Lynn as AMOH. Rather, she was appointed as acting AMOH. There was a staff presentation about a novel method of uprooting or preventing bullying in children. It's called Roots of Empathy. It has been piloted in a few of our schools with the help of the health unit, and the results, the initial results have been very encouraging, and we're going to hear more about this method in the coming years. Regarding correspondence, the board endorsed 3 correspondence from different health units and boards, one about tobacco and smoke-free campuses. The other one is about repealing Section 43 of the Criminal Code about physical punishment of children between 2 and 12 years old. And the final endorsed resolution was about requesting a 2% increase in the budget for the health unit from the ministry. The board also received correspondence regarding immunization for child care workers. More specifically, the premier acknowledges the receipt of the board's correspondence regarding child care workers' free immunization. The MOH report included different items, the most important of which is secondhand smoking and cannabis in multi-unit dwelling in anticipation of the legalization of cannabis. The health unit put together a work group for internal and external policies regarding the cannabis, and the board directed a resolution to be prepared to promote smoke-free strategies, specifically in multi-unit dwellings, to be sent to the municipalities and community partners to be utilized. The final item was regarding radon distribution kit, the awareness campaign that we ran in 2017. It will continue in 2018. And under program reports, we invite all councillors to the Healthy Community Conference in May 8th and 9th. There will be many functions related to Indigenous health and Indigenous communities and our partnership with them. And under program reports also, there is success to be noted, the Falls in Older Adults Prevention Program. The numbers of the evaluation of the program so far, there have been training workshops provided to 122 personal support workers and 159 healthcare providers in the area. About 1,400 older adults received one-on-one counseling for prevention of falls, and about 61 residents living in Grey County housing received the same counseling. About 39, or exactly 39, personal support workers who were working with Indigenous communities have received training. And it's a very successful program, hopefully to prevent tragedies from happening, falls, and reduce the cost on our healthcare system. There were 4 new news releases in the past months, and the financial report will be delayed to April, including January, February, March, and will be presented in April when we would update you about. And finally, the building updates. The work is almost complete, about 99% complete, within the budget allowed, and the only touch-ups are related to weather, and as soon as we have the right weather to do them, they will be completed within the coming 2 weeks. Thank you, and if you have any questions.
Thank you. Good report, good information. Any questions? It's Councillor Barfoot and then Councillor Ardell.
Thanks, Mr. Ward. Just to support Dr. Aaron's comment about the Healthy Communities Conference, if council members are interested, there is a limited number of spots, so if you are interested in going, I would suggest you enroll relatively quickly because it is filling up.
Thank you for that comment. Councillor Ardell?
Yes, thank you. On the cannabis smoke and multi-unit dwellings, for the private condo owners, there is an association, and I did speak at that last year, and they've done a lot of research and work, and a lot of them are lawyers, and so they have done work, and they did submit to the Association of Municipalities of the legalities of smoking cannabis in their units. So there is that association that you can get in touch with to find out more information of where they're going with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Fosbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you very much for the information. Two things. When we talk about the roof, it's my understanding that there have been some lessons learned, to put it one way. And is it safe to assume that the lessons learned from that process and how the work quality was inspected have transferred over to all of county's purchasing practices?
I'm not qualified to comment on that, but we're always learning, so I assume that was a good lesson.
Well, I just mentioned it because I know the purchasing policy is something that is pending review, and hopefully that will be a part of that.
It's about project management.
The other thing I'd like to comment on is the issue of opioids. My concern is that what measures are being taken at the municipal level I would describe as reactionary and not so proactive. And it's my understanding that if this council has any interest in taking this to higher levels of government to encourage, if not confirm, how proactively they are addressing some of the causes, that we would need to provide clear direction to the Board of Health in order to do that. So I think that it is a huge issue. And whatever higher levels of government are in fact doing to address it at its source, I think is important. And my understanding is the Board of Health can't do anything unless we give them direction in that regard.
Well, I think the Board of Health Committee can, so I don't know whether Councillor Barfoot, we duly noted that information. You're looking for a proactive position for the Board of Health on opioids. So, Councillor, or Dr. Eyre, you understand what that comment was, and perhaps we can address that not today, but at the next Board of Health meeting?
Certainly. You see, I see my role here to answer questions, to provide expertise when it's needed.
Right.
I don't see my role to influence the council by any means. However, if the council would require me to provide things or recommendation on future steps, I'll be more than happy to oblige.
Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Is that okay, the way we're proceeding through the Board of Health Committee? Thank you. Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Mr. Warden. Through you to Anne Marie, in regards to the smoke-free policy, how does that relate in our multi-dwelling units right now? I understand new people can't smoke, but if you've been there for a while, is that correct?
It is. So if you've signed a lease with us, 2014 is when we implemented a smoke-free policy. And legally, if you signed a lease with us before that, we cannot say thou shalt not smoke. So they become grandfathered in. So that is going to be a bit of a challenge, I think, for not just our housing, but all housing when it comes to implementing smoke-free.
Thank you. Do you have a further comment?
So if I may, so they're not re-signing leases? Like, would a new lease then not supersede that?
It doesn't. Like, a new lease is actually just an addition. It's not the original. So it did not, we got some legal advice on that, and the advice was in 2010 when they first started living with you and they took on that original lease. That's what it is. We can make additions to them, but we were told that we would not be able to tell a person that they cannot do something in their own home without it. We also had to have a bylaw in place in order to do that, which we do with the county. But anyone before 2014, because that bylaw did not exist.
So is that specific to tobacco? When the cannabis legislation comes in, will they be able to smoke cannabis also?
So we were a little forward-thinking, and when, in our lease, it actually says anything that emits smoke.
So we're covered. Thank you for that. Thank you, Anne Marie, for that, and thanks for that question. Okay, Councillor McKean.
Thank you. Just further to that, then, if we're to take over additional homes through ownership, would that give us the ability to revisit that and have those homes be smoke-free?
Thank you for that. Yes.
Yes, certainly. Certainly if Goldentown today does become part of Grey County, then it would be, and I believe that Goldentown does have some smoke-free in place already, too.
That's, okay, thank you for that answer. Okay, any other, so we've covered that, and so all in favor of, yes, Dr.
Sorry, Mr. Warden. Just want to mention that local community leaders are in a powerful position to signal to the housing community that the preferred option in the population, 80% of the surveys, the people surveyed in Ontario, prefer multi-unit dwelling free of smoke, any kind of smoke. And it provides tremendous health benefits and property benefits. The value of the property will increase. And the final point I want to mention, local governments are in a powerful position, again, to enact bylaws to start things instead of going into the lease itself. Whether an exclusion clause for smoking, or whether it could be to set setbacks where people cannot smoke close to buildings, or cannot smoke on balconies, or assign certain smoking areas similar to what happened in hospitals. Thank you.
That's good information, so we'll record that information. Councillor Barfoot is okay, thank you for that. Okay, all in favor of this motion? Opposed, if any? The motion is carried. Okay, so there are no bylaws today, pardon me, and so we do have an opportunity for good news and celebrations, and I do see that each one who speaks is being recorded in the minutes, so thank you for that, Tara. And are there any good news and celebrations that we need to bring forward today? Councillor Fosbrook?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I want to remind everybody of the Maple Fest that's taking place this weekend in Holstein. Again, I encourage those who've never attended to participate. Our community does a tremendous job. All you have to do is show up in Holstein, and you will literally be herded to all of the sweet adventures. I also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge what I thought was a tremendous event, being the Mayor's Forum in Meaford in relation to affordable housing. And I mention it because the presentations that were made at that function are yet to be distributed, and I would look forward to all of County Council receiving that information and giving it careful review. And I also want to mention that the recent Ken Warren Storm Watchers event that took place just a number of days ago, I thought was very good information. And I hope that there is a means to have that information shared with the public, because I think it's very safety-related, in the public interest. The gentleman gave a tremendous presentation, and hopefully the presentation itself, and not just the bits and parts, will be available. So thank you for that.
Thank you. That's information we'll certainly look into, see if it can become available. And the famous mayor from Meaford, Councillor Compass.
Thanks so much, Mr. Warden, and thanks for the comments, and thank you to all of our colleagues around the Horseshoe who have attended this session on Friday. It was really, really well attended, and I'm so proud of the efforts of staff put together to make that day so successful. Our Rob, acting CAO and Director of Planning, has moved houses this week, so there's been a slight delay in terms of distributing the information, but he guarantees that it will be out this weekend. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. That answers that question. Any other good news or? Yes, Councillor McQueen. Got these M's in her stumble over. Thank you. Percy, go ahead.
There you go. Thank you, Mr. Warden. I have two announcements, two upcoming events. Grey Highlands is hosting its first Home and Cottage show on the 21st of April. at the Kimplex in Flesherton. That's from 9 to 4, and if you're looking for a great opportunity to come out and see some great things, please do so. Also, the evening of the 21st is the Celebration of Agriculture, the Tommy Cooper Awards Night. That's being held at the, where is it, the Hanover Columbus Center, and it starts at 6:30 and it goes on to 10:30. And we're having Jerry Carroll speaking that night. He's a well-known, I guess, a comedian, farmer type fella. And there's also a DJ also playing music that night. So it's $40 a ticket, and you can follow up with that with your Hanover office. Joanne Hughes would probably be happy to sell you a ticket or two, or maybe 10. We're looking for lots of people to come out that night. And anyway, it should be a good evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that. The cottage show is no admission cost. Councillor Mackey, and then Councillor Greenfield.
Thank you, Warden. Just wanted to confirm with Councillor McQueen, Grown and Gray, I believe, has moved its venue from the Chatsworth Arena, that is no longer in existence, to the Desborough Arena, and that is taking place next week, Tuesday and Wednesday?
Tuesday, Wednesday, yes.
And also on the 28th, the Chatsworth and Area Fire Department is having their annual yard sale. So it is a perfect spot to go and pick up those one-of-a-kind gifts that you want to do early Christmas shopping for.
Is that where you got that?
That's occurring at 8 o'clock.
Where you got that sweater?
This is freshly from China, last Christmas. It was $30. So the yard sale starts at 8 o'clock on the 28th and goes through until about 12:30. So it is certainly a huge community event, and it raises, typically between $10,000 and $15,000 for the local fire department. So if you're out and about and drop into Desborough, there may be parking available for you. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other? Yes, sorry. Councillor Greenfield, you did have your hand up before, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Yes, I'm very happy to announce on Saturday, the 5th of May, starting at 10 o'clock, the municipality of Meaford is going to make a very determined effort to clean up its act. Well, at least clean up the municipality. We are holding a municipal cleanup. Starts at 10. The main headquarters would be down at the Rotary Pavilion at the harbor. We have something like at least 16 organizations and groups taking part in this. Not only in the urban area, but groups from Woodford, Bogner, out around the Riverside Community Center, and up in the Leaf area, all going to be involved. The goal is to basically help spring cleanup of the entire municipality. As I said, it starts at 10, it will go until whenever, and we're very happy that we've taken this initiative, and we also have for this special event a brand new special garbage bag called a baggie, and it will be featured. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you for that. Glad you're working on those issues. Any other? Yes, Councillor Ardell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Warden. Just on a sadder note, a dear friend of mine, a father, a husband, a grandfather, Mr. Slade, Dave Slade, who used to be a county planner here for many years, did pass away last week. There will be funeral services. I'm not sure of the date right now. It's at the end of April. It will be held at Beaver Valley Community Center.
Thank you for that. Yes, Councillor Eccles.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I'd be remiss with all of us wearing hockey sweaters with reaching out to say congratulations to two teams from West Grey that competed in the All-Ontario Championships, the Bantams and the Adams. In good West Grey fashion and being very nice, we let the competition win the championship. Both of them ended up being finalists. What I'd also like to say, though, is reach out and say congratulations, though, to the Hanover Pee Wee team that did win the All-Ontario title. thanks to a number of West Gray resident kids that play hockey.
Collaboration.
Great collaboration on that. The other thing is this Friday night, because we are with the hockey sports type theme, West for Youth is having a chicken wing dinner at the Newstead Arena Community Hall, giving a kickoff to the West for Youth August run that they have. Of course, West for Youth is a mental health support group. Also, was 2 weeks ago in Chesley. They had what they're calling open mic, and May 28th, John? Yes. I think it's May 28th in Durham. They're having another open mic presentation on individuals that have dealing or have dealt with or continually dealing with mental health issues. Very strong movement. Can make it to be there. Individuals personally open up. I think there'll be about 5. It's a 2-hour program from individuals that work in the field, parents, and youth that are suffering from that affliction and how they're doing it. And West for Youth is one of the great programs in our area that is helping out with the ever-expanding exponentially problem of mental health issues with children.
Thank you. That's good outreach. Okay, I don't see any further comments. So therefore, we'll move on to adjournment. Who's going to move for adjournment? Councillor Burley and Councillor Bell. Burley and Bell. We are adjourned.